Hey listeners, today's episode deals with a movie that involves depictions of sexual assault. So if that's a difficult topic for you, maybe don't give this episode a listen, but we try to handle the topic with care and great attention, and we hope you enjoy the episode if you continue to listen to it.
Well, you turn on your TV and there's a flick with a familiar name.
I can't wait to view my favorite film.
But you're watching and you're wondering why not one single thing is the same.
I have never seen any of these people.
You're lost and you're confused. You go searching for a friend. Then you stumble on somebody's name, they Matt, namely Anne, who are equally obsessed with why they make a thing again. Come on, Rick Moody and the Beast.
I feel like that rabbit. You killed it. This is Rebooty and the Beast, a podcast in two parts. I'm Ann Burke.
And I'm Matt Molinaro, and in the first episode, we review an original piece of media, and in the next subsequent episodes, we will be discussing the reboots or something like that. This week, we certainly have a original piece of media.
A real humdinger on our hands, I would say.
Yeah, and I had not seen this movie before, but I have heard of this movie because of the remake.
Okay.
And I knew that it was a movie only because when the remake came out, most people said that it was maybe not the best in certain ways, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so the original must be good. And then I heard it was like an Italian film from the 70s. And I thought, okay.
That could be fun. That could be interesting.
Yeah, that could be fun. And I've seen Overboard with Goldie Hawn.
Literally, Matt, that was exactly what I was thinking we were going to be watching.
Yeah.
I literally thought we were going to be like, oh, like two people get like, land, what's it called? Not land shark, not shorelocked. Shipwrecked, thank you.
Yes.
And it's like a cute little love story, and maybe there's some odd couple elements going on.
Yes. And some like...
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we're seeking to understand one another.
Yeah.
We're both extremes, and we're coming towards the middle.
Exactly.
One of those moments. And we're the kind of movie where at first you kind of dislike the people, but by the end you're like, oh, I like you.
Like they've shown character growth and development on both sides, and so you're like, okay. It's kind of like a You've Got Mail sort of situation.
Serendipity. While you were sleeping. By the way, Overboard also has a reboot, which I wasn't sure about, but I've confirmed. It's with Anna Faris, and I forget who plays the Kurt Russell character. So,
okay,
if we need a palate cleanser later on in the season, or later on in the series of our shows, we could always slip Overboard in and get swept away by that.
I mean, I guess depending on how next week episode goes, we could always just immediately go to another nautical adventure.
That's true. We could really... It could be like when you're watching Below Deck and then you watch Below Deck Med.
Matt, we could really dive in. Get it?
Can I tell you something really, really quick?
Of course.
When I was younger and I worked as a barista at Starbucks, a good friend of mine, Will, and I used to play a game where we would, throughout our shift, verbally write out the script of a Lifetime original movie. And we would, name it, and we'd randomly go to each other. Like, one was called Daughters of Savannah, I remember. And it was a woman road tripping across the country. Her ex-husband had passed and left a mysterious trunk, and she was taking a road trip with her daughters to go get it. But the one I was mentioning now is we had one called about a diver who was struggling because her coach was, making her work too hard, and she was exhausted. She was a teenager, school, all that stress. She wasn't eating right, and we called it In Too Deep.
Oh my God.
And we said that the scene we'd see in the preview would be her standing on the diving board and all the audience watching, and you'd hear the heartbeat, but then she passes out and splash.
Oh
anyway.
God.
Yeah. So speaking
you
of...
you would improvise a Lifetime movie during the course of your shift?
Yeah, I remember we would randomly show up. We'd be doing coffee stop, and when there'd be a moment, it would be okay, wait, who do you think would play the mom? And then we'd be like, oh, Rita Wilson, 100%. Yeah, Rita Wilson for sure. And then we'd be like walking around and be like, do you think there'd be like a montage scene? And we'd be like, yeah, like Reba McEntire maybe, Cher.
Amazing. Incredible.
By the way, I was in the closet. LOL.
LOL, indeed.
Happy Pride.
Nothing says more heterosexual than improvising your own Lifetime movies.
With my out gay friend, Will.
Aw, precious.
Right?
Okay.
Well, I think the fun is about to end because I think we should start talking about the film.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, let's start with it opens on a sailboat.
Oh, wait.
in...
Do you want the summary?
Go ahead. Oh, yes, of course. I do.
Because, let's bury the lead a little more.
Yeah.
So, Swept Away, 1974, Italian film, all in subtitles. So, I'm sure many famous actors, but I don't know them, obviously, by name. Giancarlo Giannini and Mariangela Malato are the main two.
Mm-hmm.
And the summary is, a trip into the Mediterranean Sea becomes a trip into the discovery of how society's frameworks of the rich and poor are delicate and temporary. Interesting.
I would strongly disagree with that summary.
Sure, I would too, but reading the summary sounds interesting.
Interesting. And I mean, we'll talk about it at the end when we get to like what would have to change for this to be a good remake, or what would you improve upon.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm just going to say that really downplays some very significant themes of the movie.
It sure does. And I think plays up some far less significant ones.
Agreed.
And by the way,
All
the
right.
runtime of this movie is 2 hours-ish?
Yeah, I thought you told me it was an hour and a half, and then I saw an hour and 56 minutes, and I was like, God damn it, Matt.
It's the remake is at about an hour and a half. I think I read the
thank
wrong
God.
one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we open on a sailboat in the Mediterranean. There's some Italian music happening. We see the two main characters kind of like not speaking. It's just sort of like footage of them during opening credits.
Mm-hmm.
She, by the way, is so beautiful.
Stunning.
She really kind of reminds me of Lady Gaga.
Oh, I could absolutely could see that. Yes, she is stunning, like a statuesque quality about her. The whole movie. Honestly, she's a beautiful,
very
individual.
beautiful woman.
And I liked the music.
Yeah.
Overall, throughout the movie, even though it didn't always fit what was happening, I liked the music because it was so 70s.
Yes. Yeah.
And the like, just the whole shooting of the cinematography, whatever. I liked the setting. I liked the coast of Italy or wherever they were. Very pretty. And again,
Beautiful colors, beautiful ocean,
yes,
beautiful gowns.
The fashion at the beginning. So 70s and Italian, and it felt
Amazing.
very White Lotus-y almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that most of the things that we're going to say... Do you remember that 30 Rock sketch? You watched 30 Rock, right?
A few seasons, yeah. I want to
Okay.
actually go back and watch it all the way through, but yes.
There's an episode where like Tina Fey is talking about how, Jenna Maroney used to drag her to all of the like awful theater things that she was in, and she was like, and you would just have to find something nice to say, and it was always like, I thought the lighting was really neat, and I feel like that's going to be my tone for the review of this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I think most of the positive things will probably be getting out of the way real quick.
Yes. And yeah, I will say a very beautifully filmed film. Like great colors, great costumes, great setting.
Great shots. They went on a little
Great
too long.
shots.
It was the 70s, I guess, but I mean,
Yes.
but gorgeous.
Lots of
yes.
nature, lots of pretty nature.
Lots of pretty nature. Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Okay. So,
Passionate acting.
very passionate acting. Very passionate acting. I will say it's really interesting reading about this movie after watching it.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many reviews that talk about how the man who played Gennarino, how he's like one of the best actors of his time or whatever.
Yeah, I've read that too.
And I wouldn't agree with that, but I think she was a phenomenal actress.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So it opens with this woman whose name is Rafaela, and she is basically the first literally probably solid 6 minutes of this movie is her and her husband just screaming at each other.
Yes, like,
And I was like, oh God, like, please tell me this movie is more than just people screaming at each other. Sadly, that was a lot of it.
yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, but this screaming is very like, I'm going to reference this a lot, but like very like Below Deck, over the top charter.
Yes.
Guests just going on and on and on. And it's not a big boat. I'm saying it's small enough where like the folks who work on the boat are just a mere, floor.
A stone's throw away.
Yeah, ceiling to floor away.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, we get it. We get it. They fight. They fight. The hand movements were so stereotypically Italian. I'm Italian. I grew up in this. My grandparents were from Italy, so I know the the mannerisms well, and I know they're stereotypical, but they're real. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I could hear my grandparents fighting.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Memories. And that's where all the warm memories of Italy ended for me. But
Yeah.
another thing I thought was interesting is that one of the things they're fighting about is the idea of divorce in Italy and how it's a new law that's they're getting used to.
Correct. Yeah.
Crazy. 1974. Let's all remember that this is the world in Italy. I was like, is this real? I looked it up. It was illegal to get a divorce in Italy until 1970, and until 1974, it was still a hot debate that they kept trying to repeal it.
Yeah.
Wild.
I mean, not
really,
That's the thing.
but-
When people are like, marriages used to last or whatever, and it's like, actually, women weren't allowed to have a bank account in their own name until the 1970s in the United States. So let's just think about why that might have been the case.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, so let's see. They argue about everything from like segregation to sterilization to Stalin and Hiroshima and divorce laws.
The Vatican.
It's very clear that they're setting her up as this very conservative, like pseudo-fascist, really entitled character who is instantly unlikable as a person.
Yes, she's in addition to screaming with her husband back and forth, who's equally unlikable. They have a couple friends on the boat that don't matter, but they
not at all.
Not at all, literally. I mean, I think one of them is only on the boat so that her like boob could be out. But we are sort of kind of introduced to the two, like the deckhand and the lead deckhand, I guess, or the captain and the deckhand.
Yeah.
And I guess the deckhand is going to be Gennarino. And they treat them like garbage. They kind of like treat them like dogs. They treat them like animals. And she especially has like nothing nice to say about these guys. And the captain guy is more like, kissing her feet in front of her and under, below deck being like, what a maniac. Maybe not his words. Whereas the other guy is more like, I guess he thinks he's more daring, but for the first half, he just kind of stares at her a lot.
A lot of staring. A lot of very awkward staring.
Yeah, a lot of very awkward staring through his very unkempt beard and hair.
And some very intense Ramona Singer eyeballs acting happening.
Yes, if you're watching Miami right now, it's very Lisa's boyfriend's eyeballs. But yeah, I was like, okay, I get it. She's unlikable. She doesn't like these guys. At the same time, this is going to become a theme, but the language of the deckhands towards these people
is... Oh my God.
I mean, the amount of times they say the word bitch.
Yeah.
And that's probably the mildest term they use to describe a woman.
Yeah.
And the amount of times... I would say
pretty much every word under the sun is used in this movie, and most of them are pretty offensive.
Wildly.
Also...
So he's not likable either.
No, and I don't know about the dynamics between like northern and southern Italy, but especially in the 70s, I would know even less. But she refers to him as like a dirty southerner, and like he refers to himself as black during the movie. Although I don't know if that was like a translation thing. But it seems like there's also some like racist element at play between her and him as well.
Yes. I know very little about that, but I do know that, like, my grandparents, for example, my grandmother was from, like, a little bit, like, higher, not a high-class family, but, like, a, you know, middle-class, upper-middle-class family, and they were very fair-skinned, my grandmother's family. My grandfather's family, they lived in the same country, actually, even though they met in America, but they lived in the same, you know, area of Italy, whatever, I don't know how you call it. Region, thank you. And his family were farmers, and they were like not very wealthy. And my grandpa, if you saw pictures of him, you might think he was a black man when he was younger, especially. And I remember hearing stories about that. Like, it was very interesting that, like, the two of them were together, because where they were, they would never have been, like, found each other, because their lives were so separate, and they just never even would have looked at each other. But they actually met in America and found out that they were from the same area. So that's my whole experience of it, my personal one. But I know that's, like, a thing.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a thing in this movie, for sure.
Yeah, which, you know, okay, I was over the screaming and the what I would call, like, word salad of pseudo-intellectual gargle about their politics.
Oh my god.
I was over that, but I was like, okay, I'm kind of interested in, like, the dynamic and where we're gonna go with this.
Yeah, that probably lasted for another 10 minutes or so, I'd imagine.
Yeah, right about until they got into the little dinghy.
Dinghy? Yeah. So, I mean, there's just a lot of screaming. She's awful. He's, like, getting more and more agitated and fed up. She seems to, like, take every opportunity she can to be awful to him, and he takes every opportunity to call her names behind her back and stare at her awkwardly.
Watch
and
them
then
change,
there's this,
watch them
sunbathe. Watch them sunbathe. Then there's this really awkward conversation between the deckhand and the captain when everybody's, like, going to bed for the night, where they talk about how all of these women's husbands are wimps and the women are taking advantage of them. And they have this super misogynistic conversation where they say that these shitheads, referring to the husbands, are ruining women. Then who's going to wash our underwear? So that's cool. And that, just FYI, there's going to be a callback to that later on.
And, like, for no reason, they find marijuana in, like, one of the guests' stuff. And they kind of one of them gets high for a second, but there's no relevance to it at all. I think it was just, like, the 70s and they had to have him get high, I guess.
I thought he took it away from him.
I don't know. It was, yeah, maybe he might have and said, oh, yeah, don't take this. But it was like, what is the point of this? And then they talk a lot about how they think that the guests want to have an orgy. There must be getting high and having an orgy together. It's like, what?
Yeah, that was confusing too. I was like, what are we talking about suddenly? Right. It felt very like Reefer Panic from...
Yes!
from America.
Yes, the way they were talking about, they're like, oh my God, it's marijuana.
Reefer Madness, I guess it is, not Panic.
Yeah.
So Raffaella wakes up the next day and she's had been up late. And so everybody else has already gone, like, off the boat swimming. So she's kind of solo. And it's, like, almost sunset, but she's like, take me out, like, take me on a dinghy to the caves. I want to swim with them for a while. And he's like, this is a bad idea. Like, the sun's almost setting. It's far. The tide's against us. But, of course, she doesn't take no for an answer. So she and Gennarino end up on a dinghy. And wouldn't you know it, the motor dies.
What do you know? And then she's all upset with him. He's trying to fix it. Is it hopeless? Blah, blah, blah.
Calling him incompetent. Calling him an amateur. And by the way... at this point, they've been, adrift at sea for probably a couple hours while he's trying to get the motor fixed. And they are both remarkably calm for the fact that their lives are in extreme danger.
Yeah, like, she's complaining a lot, but complaining like, I can't believe you can't do this. I'm so annoyed. This is taking forever. Well, I guess I'll have to just sleep here. It's not like, oh my God, I'm in danger. She's sure that the people are going to find them. That's what she's sure is going to happen no matter what. That these people are going to be looking for them and find them.
And he, meanwhile, keeps saying esperiamo, which is let's hope. And she's agitated by that because I think, she's never not gotten her way before or whatever.
Yeah, and he's very, like, flazé-da.
But they end up, like, sleeping that night in the dinghy, and they wake up the next morning, and they can't even see anything in any direction. And all I could think about, Matt, during this was the sunburn that they would have.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. Like, you're very quickly going to die of like exposure and like get 3rd-degree sunburns and die of dehydration because there's no water on. They're like had no water on this boat either.
She did cover herself like everything but her eyes.
Yes,
I feel like
sometimes, but then sometimes would just like be in her bikini in the sun, and I was like, okay, all right.
They have some like him catching fish out of the water and eating them live moments, which right. But okay, he can just catch fish with his hands and eat them alive because he's Mowgli.
Or Gollum, either one. Oh yeah, he does get the boat working for a minute, and he's like, which direction? And she's like, you're the sailor, and he's like, I'm not going to take any responsibility for which direction we go. And so he starts driving them in circles, and she's screaming at him about wasting gasoline, and finally she's like, fine, go this way, I'm not afraid of responsibility. But the engine eventually, I think, runs out of gas.
It's unclear, but it just doesn't working anymore in one scene, and so they randomly have oars, by the way, the next morning, which I don't remember them having, but now they have oars. And when they wake up the next morning, because it ran out again, there's a scene where they become a human sail, which means nothing and whatever. But yeah, the next morning they see it land, and they get there, and it's like,
wait, you forgot about the part where they do spot another boat, and they start screaming and whistling and waving their arms. But she, in her like franticness, like throws the whistle overboard, and he like sits down because he's like, they can't hear us from here, they can't see us from here, like give it up. And so then they have yet another night and another day on the boat, and then eventually the next morning, I think, is when they see land. And I feel like land is being generous because it looks like 2 large rocks.
Yeah, I think land is being like quite literal. It's like, it's just land. It's not like
right
civilization. It's literally just land. But you know, she's sure that there's gonna be a cafe and a motel, and he, hops her on the rocks and tells her like, no such luck, this is deserted, and it's basically just the rocks. And she's like, in the Mediterranean, impossible.
I did like the moment where he's like, we're gonna have to be careful of the rocks as we come in, and she's like, nonsense, this thing is supposed to be practically unsinkable, and then like it immediately cuts to the boat having like bust open on the rocks and them like wading onto the land.
Yes, I did like that. There were a couple of moments like that where she would say, I'm never going to do that, and then it would cut to her doing it. Yeah. Those were funny at first.
Yeah. He finds a little shack on the island, but it has like, it's literally just shelter. There's nothing in it. He catches a lobster with his hands while she tongues a sea urchin.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. That's right. I forgot about her tonguing the sea urchin.
That was so weird.
It was.
So this is where I think we kind of start to get our, change of circumstances, our reversal of fortune, where, he's roasting this lobster, she's starving, and she's like, there has to be a law against letting people starve. And this is the one moment where I like his character in this movie, because he claps back and it was like, if that were true, all the rich people would be in prison. And I was like, accurate.
Right. Which is where I thought we were, I really was still here.
Yes.
Even with the language. I was like, okay, it's a different time.
Sure. Yeah. I can, a movie about class struggle, I'm in for that. But then he starts saying things like, if you want some fish to eat, you have to earn it. And then he throws his clothes at her face and says, wash my underwear. So there's that. He refuses to let her call him by his first name and tells her to call him Mr. Caruncio. Let's see. He shuts her out of the hut and like lets her sleep outside.
Yeah, she's got a hurt foot and he's like, I don't care. And yeah, he's like a pig. He makes her sleep outside, and when she gets outside, when he wakes up in the morning and like steps over her, they argue again, and he like says, "Oh, I know you, like, why did you want to sleep in there with me?" And she's like, "You just wanted to like sleep with me. You wanted to like fuck, basically." And she says
Right.
he's revolting and
Yeah.
leaves.
So then he says, like, he does more things like yanks her by the hair and says women were born to serve men, not the other way around. And he commands her to kiss his hand.
Repeatedly.
And then he slaps her in the face.
Punches her in the face,
Uh-huh.
kicks her,
Yeah.
drags her by the hair.
Says things like, kiss your master's hand.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to slap her a lot in this movie.
A lot.
A lot. Yeah. He's ordering her around, like making her get him fresh water from the spring. And then he starts to like, I mean, this is already horrendous behavior.
Yes.
And then he starts to get like sexual predator-y with her and is like, I should be able to look at you whenever I want. Like, take off your top. I want to see your, he uses a word that I don't love. And commands her to strip. And then there's a very lengthy chase scene across the island with him threatening to sexually assault her.
Yeah, and she's running away from him for a long time on the beach. Sometimes he catches up a little bit and like punches her, smacks
Slaps
her in the
her.
face,
Yeah.
throws her down a dune. Like, it's
Yes.
it's one of the most violent things in the world. If you would put horror movie music on, it would feel very, very like fitting. Except for
Yeah.
the music in the background is fun and upbeat and like beach blanket bingo.
Yeah.
Do as he's like running across the beach, attacking her, saying all these things he's going to do to her.
Yeah.
The way he describes her body, the way he describes her as a individual.
Yeah.
Horrific, and she's screaming for her life.
Screaming. Yeah.
In all of the scenes thus far, she's trying to stand up for herself the best she can, and it's just earning her more abuse. And then he sexually assaults her.
Well, I think that in this moment, he says he's about to, and then he's like, no, I need you to want it. You must feel passion for me and worship me as your god. There's a scene where he kills and skins a rabbit, and she's traumatized and says, I feel like that rabbit, you killed it. So she's clearly experiencing a lot of trauma at his hands.
So he beats
But
her
then
more.
she starts, and then she starts kissing his feet and has, like, puts his hand in her hair, and now they're kissing. And my next note says, I hate this in all capitals. Because it suddenly becomes like a complete, like, Stockholm syndrome thing of, we as the audience are meant to believe that she is now in love with him after all of this,
Yeah, and
that she wants all of this from him.
And I had to fast forward through most of the, I wouldn't call them sex scenes. I would call them all sexual assault scenes. Because there's no way she had any say in anything at this point. I had to fast forward through most of them because I tried to watch them, but then, and like just kind of like read the text on the screen and not watch what was happening.
Yeah.
But the things that he was saying during those scenes were so vile. And the
Disgusting.
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 And the things that were written for her that she had to say, also disgusting. And it was like the way they showed what you described of her, like the audience is meant to believe like this is a romance,
Right.
a passionate exchange,
Right.
is through a series of scenes of him beating her into what he would believe is submission. I mean, beating her into submission like a beaten animal, like terrible.
Totally. Yeah.
And saying things to her like, now you're feminine. You've never looked
Right.
more feminine, and it's because you're docile and tender.
Yeah, and he like refers to her as an object of pleasure.
Yes.
Not as a human.
Yes. And she is saying back that yes, and she's telling him like to do things to her.
Yeah.
Like kill her.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's like talk about her like husband and how he's like a pussy basically. What this discuss? I mean, it goes on, and I couldn't believe the amount of like filthy, disgusting, demeaning, misogynistic, terrible language that was happening.
Yeah.
I haven't seen something like that made me so reactive in so long. I couldn't believe.
I'm glad you warned me, because Matt sent me a text and was like, hey, just FYI, there's a pretty atrocious like sexual assault scene that starts around this timestamp. So I thankfully was like, had braced myself for that. And it was literally just like probably 30 to 40 minutes of him dehumanizing this woman.
Yeah. And then interspersed between these like sexual assault scenes were scenes of them doing some sort of domestic labor and him beating her until she did it correctly or silently or with her head down or fawning over him the whole time. And like us as viewers are meant to be like, ha 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 ha. We're meant to think it's
Literally,
funny.
On like Wikipedia, this is listed as a comedy drama. And I was like, oh, I found zero, other than the boat moment where it's unsinkable and then it breaks. Other than that, I did not find a single moment of levity in this movie.
I wrote down at this part because they had, I just kept getting, no, not at all. It kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Would you be seen with me if we ever went back? We could never go back because you wouldn't be seen with me. And we're meant to feel bad for him and believe that she is some sort of like gold digging maniac if she doesn't continue this cycle of abuse if they were to be saved. And she will be the villain if that were to be this situation, and he is the passionate romantic. And then she says a phrase, well, I was reading obviously the subtitles, but she says to him, I no longer know myself. And I was like, oh, there it is. This is like exactly it. This, first of all, I was like, wow, this is the swept away thing. This being swept away into this. Wow. I can't believe that that's what the title was about. And I just wrote, this is the world men want.
So gross.
Disgusting.
I think it's interesting. There's two moments where they see a boat. The first time she sees a boat and like starts to wave it down, but then immediately stops and goes and tells him and says, like, I saw a yacht, but I didn't hail it because I'm in love with you and I don't want to be rescued. And his response is to slap her and tell her that he's the one who decides whether or not she should hail a yacht. So she shouldn't even make decisions on anything without consulting him.
Right.
And then they spot another boat, 20 minutes later or whatever. And she says to him, what happened to us here was a miracle. And he responds by saying he needs proof that she's not the same person as she was before. So he lights a signal fire and they're finally rescued off the island.
Unreal.
And
not before he rips an earring out of her head.
Oh, correct.
And
Yeah.
Puts it in his own, or makes her put it in his ear.
Yeah.
Romantic.
On the rescue boat, he's talking to another sailor about how he took the fight for survival out of her, or like the fight for survival took all the fight out of her. And we get these like weird scenes with like her and her husband and him and his wife where they're like sort of observing them with their spouse moments where we're meant to believe that they're sort of like longing for each other and like wondering if they can still be together.
Right. Because we find out that Jenna Reno, we already knew she was married. We find out that he's been married the whole time as well.
The whole time. Yeah.
He's got a wife back home and children, a wife and children. And he treats her like garbage when she comes and running towards him on the shore. It's supposed to be like this funny thing. Like this big funny thing. Oh my God, he was shooting his wife. How funny. Oh my God.
Yeah.
How funny. That poor foolish woman.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm sick.
So
he gives her husband gives him 1 million lire because he saved his wife, I guess, or took care of her.
Right. Which he then spends on a giant ring.
Tacky.
Calling it a divorce ring. Very ugly.
Yeah. Yellow and gross.
And has a child bring it to her with a flower as he calls her from a gas station where he can see her, which is very stalkerish and very creepy.
Very horror movie.
Very horror movie. And says like, will you still be with me? I have a boat. Meet me at this boat in 40 minutes or 40 minutes before sunset or whatever.
Yeah. And he also says, you've already failed the test, but maybe we could still be together.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, super gross. And then in the first
one thing I did right here before we move on.
Okay.
A moment of levity. I was like, after she hangs up the phone, a public phone, she like wipes her head all over the public phone.
I know.
I was like, girl, that is a public phone at like
Honestly.
a vacation spot. You are gonna die in this. Is there even medicine for what you're gonna get?
Yeah. So, she makes the right decision, and instead of meeting him at the boat, she flies away on a helicopter
With the ring.
and with the ring.
Yes, girl.
And like, go girl. And the movie kind of like wraps up with him like screaming at the helicopter, calling her all kinds of misogynistic words and a traitor. He never should have trusted her. You've left me all alone. He throws her earring into the sea.
His wife
and-
comes and
Oh my god. And he kicks the shit out of her too.
yeah, she fights him a little bit, tries to like yell at him, and he fights her back. We already saw him smack her in the face. We saw that in public, and like it was nothing. But yeah, he tries to fight her too. But she says, "I'm throwing you out," and then she says she's really glad she voted for divorce. And then the closing scene is, I think, her or it's like the two of them walking, Jenna Reno and his wife, from afar towards a boat, and she's carrying suitcases or whatever, and it's meant to believe, I think, that she's either leaving or she's kicked him out.
Well, he takes the suitcase from her, so I think it's meant to tell us that they're staying together.
Oh, really?
That's what I took away from it.
Gross. I thought it was
I
like,
know.
She was walking his suitcases away, and like he was like, I'll take them from here or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Well,
I'm
who
not
knows?
sure.
It was very hard to read because I was fast forwarding and trying to get through this ending as fast as possible at this point.
Agreed. So, I am shocked that anyone thought this movie should ever be remade.
I cannot believe that someone would see this movie and think, you know what? Let's take another bite at this apple.
Honestly, I mean, listen, in romance, like enemies to lovers is like a well-known trope in romance. And I'm using the word romance, and I do not apply it to this movie
No.
because I do not think this was a romance. But I could see how, rich person on a boat becomes stranded with, one of the workers from the boat, and you have this odd couple pairing, and they have an antagonistic beginning, but then they learn to appreciate things about each other and they both grow as people. Could be a really fun movie. Like, that's the premise of a lot of things, right? This was not that. And I know you also read a lot of things about this movie online, and I've read some things where people are like, the people who think this movie is just misogynistic are missing the point entirely, that this is about class warfare, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody's response that was like, if that were true, then why did it have to be a man and a woman?
Right.
Why wasn't it the husband who got stranded? And then it was just about the class antagonism between the two of them. Like, if that's the point you wanted to make, you entirely obscured it by making it about abuse and sexual assault.
Yeah. And beyond even the physical abuse, the mental like manipulation and the like psychopathic, disgusting misogynistic, but like violently misogynistic viewpoint that you are trying to quote unquote break her into, like a animal needing to be tamed. It was what is the? I read so many reviews because I was really expecting to see people that expressing what I was screaming from inside silently, and I was horrified by the amount of pseudo-intellectual people out there. Oh, there would be a sentence in each review talking about, there'd be a review, this is a piece of masterpiece. This is showing all the things you said. Like, oh, people are missing the point. They're getting too wrapped up in the moment. Movies are supposed to have an emotional reaction. Da 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 da. And there'll be like a sentence in there that'll say something like, yes, the abuse was a little overdone. Or, yes, I couldn't get past the first sexual encounter scene. Very few refer to any of them as an assault or rape, any of them.
Yeah.
But if any of them, they refer to only the first one as such, and then the rest being so... But then, the way they got together, so romantic, people were saying, how passionate and romantic it was, and how you have to look at her as not a woman, but an idea. What? what are
You
and then I was reading one and then the most frustrating little tidbit of information people would throw into their reviews when they were trying to pass over what this movie was really about would be oh, and it was made by a woman. Oh, directed
Right.
by a woman, so obviously it's okay. That doesn't mean jack shit.
honestly.
Jack shit. There are so many ways you could have gotten a movie to talk about class and the rich and the poor and all of the politics that maybe I don't quite understand on a granular level. There are so many other ways you could have had a movie express this that didn't involve hours. Probably over a solid hour of this movie was him beating and assaulting
Abusing her.
You know,
Totally.
there are many ways you could have done that without doing it
Yeah.
at all, but certainly not for over an hour. And to be honest, I think that the hidden meaning is pretty basic.
So the one thing, there's not a whole lot of trivia about this movie, but the one thing that I will say is that Roger Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up or whatever, or a thumbs up, I don't even know, and said that this movie it resists the director's most determined attempts to make it a fable about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, and persists in being a film about a man and a woman. On that level, it's a great success.
I read his whole review. I
Disgusting.
was disgusted. I think he gave it 4 out of 5 stars as well. Yeah, you can hide behind whatever it was you want to. This movie was a view of what the most misogynistic, patriarchal folks in the world want the world to look like.
Yeah.
And just plain and simple, it's exactly what they want the world to look like. It is a narrative that has been forced down our throats from birth, just in way more surreptitious ways than this. This was really heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And it would, even as heavy-handed and ham-fisted or whatever other kind of word you want to use as this was, it still just remains a iconic film in people's minds. And get past the little note about it being literally a movie about the kind of world that most of us are afraid is
Right. If you could just overlook him slapping her for a solid hour, then there's a really good message here.
Yeah, I felt wow, you could have done this a lot of ways, and I don't think it was that groundbreaking of a topic in the first place. And
Agreed.
it was just a shame. It was just a shame to watch it and to read the way people think about it. It was very upsetting.
Yeah.
And I was very glad it was over. So,
Agreed. So,
you want to get
what
more upset
would
and hear the
you-
ratings?
oh god. Oh yeah, I do.
All right. IMDb, still, right now, 7.5.
Okay.
Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter is 62%,
Okay.
and the audience meter is 80%.
Wow.
You know what I think that
That's-
is? Chilling. I
Yeah,
think that's
I agree.
bone chilling.
Yeah.
What do you give it?
You know what's funny is I was like, I'm going to give this movie the lowest score I've ever given something. And then I saw that I gave Psycho a 0.5, the remake of Psycho. I'm going to give it a 0. I literally, the only things I liked about this were the visuals of Italy. She was a phenomenal actor, and there were some pretty scenes. Nothing else about this was good to me.
Yeah, I'll give this a solid 0 as well. I'm not saying there weren't good things about it. Like I said, the acting was, honestly, even his acting, it was convincing in a really bone-chilling way.
Yeah.
And I had to stop at one point. I literally did this. I was watching it with Davey, who was also having visceral reactions to it. But I remember stopping at one point while it was playing and saying out loud, before the sexual assault scenes, I was saying out loud, this is a movie. They are actors. This is
I know.
so over the top. This is not how this would sound if it was happening. This is so extreme. Remember that, remember that, remember that. I had to do that so many times. So there's skill in the acting, unfortunately, and there's some nice backdrop, and the music was transportive, but it was made in the 70s, so there's nothing groundbreaking about the music either. So, but all of that is for nothing, because I think it made something that exists now out there in the world that I'll stop going on about it after this, but I not only think this is like a bad movie, but I think it's a dangerous movie for people to watch and to view in the way they do. And for
I would agree with that.
yeah, I would say like I don't like that. So 0.
Okay.
A Beauty or a Beast.
Oh my God. Beast.
Beast.
To the ultimate degree.
Beast. By the way, I don't think we said last week if it was a Beauty or a Beast, but I think we both agreed it was Beast, right?
You know what's so funny is we didn't, but then I looked at our scores and I was like, well, a 2 and a 3.5. I think that's fair to say that it's a beast for both of them.
Yeah. It's hard for me to go back and say that the Aladdin remake was a beast after seeing this movie, because the bar was really dropped down low after that. I almost want to be like, sorry, Will Smith, but no.
Honestly, I literally had the exact same thought, Matt. I was like, wow. I mean, I would rather watch Aladdin 10 more times than watch this again.
100%. Give me Will Smith in a blue CGI genie outfit any day over this.
Yeah.
Next week is the remake.
The reboot with Madonna, who is, I think famously known as not a great actress.
I think that she's been known to. Well, wait. I've never seen Evita.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I liked Evita.
But I don't know if it's good. I mean, I like the songs from Evita.
Right. Like, I think if it were not a musical and it wasn't carried by the weight of the songs, then
she'd have had a hard time.
I don't think it. Yeah. So
yeah,
it'll be. And okay, if next week's movie set in 2002,
yes,
or made in 2002, is even 25% as violent and misogynistic as this movie, I am going to be furious.
We were talking about this, Davey and I. There's no way it can. There's no way, even if they wanted to make a movie like that they could have. I don't think they could have gotten away with it under any circumstances, even in 2002.
Yeah.
But
let's hope not.
I'm hoping that we get a more overboard kind of vibe, you know? And if they want to lean into some sort of class system thing, I hope they make it a little more clear and a little bit less like we're having a word salad at the beginning of the day to cover up how we're going to beat the woman to death for the rest of the movie.
Also, could we have like 75% less screaming?
Oh, yes, for sure. And I also saw that Elizabeth Banks is in the next movie, and we've...
Oh my God, Elizabeth Banks. How does she associate herself with some things that are so amazing and some things that are so fucking god-awful?
I know, and I really like her, I think.
Me too.
I don't know her life, like, but I like her in interviews a lot. I think she's so funny and, like, cracks me up. She's so just that person. But I think she
apparently, she just must, if somebody waves a check in front of her face, she must say yes. She
is really super rich. I saw her on Watch What Happens Live recently. She was recently on it. You should watch it because they played a game with her. It was shortly after we did our Power Rangers episode 2. They played a game with her where they like showed her a picture of a role. Andy showed her a picture of a role she was in and asked her like if she regrets it or was it a good experience or not.
Yeah.
And they put up a picture of her as Rita Repulsa. And you could tell she's a professional and cannot say that it was a bad experience.
Yeah.
But from every other movie, she was like, I love doing that with that one. Or that was great. This one came up and she at first was like, she took a beat. And then talked about the crew, I think. Or like how long. She said, I just didn't like all the prosthetics, I think.
Yeah. I thought the lighting was really neat.
She's rich and she knows what she's doing. She probably is like, she's a joiner.
Yeah. Also, I think the main actor in the reboot is the son of the main actor in this one.
Oh, I did hear that.
Yeah. So more interesting choices.
Interesting choices. I heard that they would have had the other guy in it as well, but he had passed away by this time.
Yeah. Anyway, listeners, wow, what a journey. Did you know that for $0 a month, you can help support our podcast simply by rating and reviewing it on whatever platform you're currently using to listen to this episode?
That's right. And another way for people to find out about our podcast is through word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell your foes, post about us on Reddit or any sort of social media. Find a way to spread the word and make sure if you tell them about this episode, let them know we don't like this one.
Yeah. Our social media is RebootyPod on Instagram, and you can email us at rebootypod@gmail.com. We do love getting emails, so feel free to send us a note and say hi.
And we have a Patreon that has a lot of back content on it of us reviewing movies and playing games and doing all sorts of fun stuff. So you should check it out at patreon.com/N and Matt.
Thank you for listening to Rebooty and the Beast.
See you next week.
Goodbye.